Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1061. Growing the Rainbow Holy Tree. It was only a duration of a couple of breaths. That little sapling had already grown to the thickness of a thigh, and 6 zhang tall. Jun Moxie smiled, and the pale green light on his fingers suddenly vanished, replaced by a layer of deep green glow. Pop! That rainbow holy tree shot straight into the skies, 20 zhang in height, its trunk also instantly thickening. Its crown began to spread rapidly, like dark clouds that had suddenly gathered in the skies, filling up the entire heavens. After another couple of breaths, it seemed that the sapling could no longer be called a sapling anymore, because the trunk of this newly grown rainbow holy tree was about 4 meters in diameter. Countless of nonagon leaves spread out, swaying gently, and the entire tree was emitting a faint rainbow glow. Yet again, after a while, from amidst the densest part of its leaves and branches, a rich fragrance began to gently spread. Small rainbow-colored flowers sprouted, 7 in a bunch. And there were 7 such bunches on the entire tree. Jun Moxie was shocked. Isn't it only supposed to produce only 2 bunches every 500 years? Why are there 7 on this tree? Could the genes have mutated? Just as he was pondering over this matter, the rainbow holy tree that had been planted in the Hongjun Pagoda for less than a quarter of an hour began to bear fruit for the first time, under the effects of the dark green light. The flower petals began to wither at a visible speed, and the rainbow-colored fruits hung on the branches. 49 of them. It was really 7 bunches. In a blink of an eye, the entire Hongjun Pagoda was filled with its fragrance. Jun Moxie only stopped infusing the power of wood after this. He didn't want to be kicked out by the Hongjun Pagoda like the previous time. Carefully observing these 7 colored holy fruit, it was exactly the same as the ones he had eaten before, with absolutely nothing odd about it. The only small difference was that the 7 colored holy fruit that was grown here was 2 times the size of the ones he had eaten. Looked like the things grown within the Hongjun Pagoda was way better than in the outside world. And one more thing is, looks like the Lord Holy Tree did not try to play any tricks with me. It's worth praising. The way you treat me, I'll return it to you 2 folds. I still have some conscience. Jun Moxie did not know that when Lord Holy Tree was a seed, he was only soaked in its senior's life-blood essence for a short while, unlike this seed that had completely had its fill. These were 2 different types of treatment. To a rainbow holy tree, this was the most natural foundations it could have. It could even be said that the 7 colored holy fruit that Jun Moxie had in the Hongjun Pagoda was the 7 colored holy fruit in its most perfect state. Just when young Master Jun heaved a sigh of relief, there was another change within the Hongjun Pagoda. From the rainbow holy tree, a rainbow shot out, cutting across the vast space and connecting perfectly onto the exquisite lotus on the other end. Then, this arch of rainbow just stayed between them, forming a literal rainbow bridge. Jun Moxie could even vaguely sense that through the transmission between this rainbow bridge, the exquisite lotus and rainbow holy tree were growing more quickly, complementing each other's growth. This is great. This is really great. Jun Moxie excitedly waved his fist, keeping the 7 bunches of 7 colored holy fruit on the tree. Then, he even added some enforcement to ensure that these fruits would not fall off before leaving. Actually, young Master Jun's acts was unnecessary. The 7 colored holy fruit remaining on its branches had better effects than being harvested. And it would not fall unless it was forcibly plucked off. What is this? Young Master Jun was originally feeling extremely pleased after settling the rainbow holy tree, coupled with the matter with the exquisite lotus. But upon coming out, he seemed displeased again. Snake Queen Green Hunter had already been fished out by Lord Holy Tree and was laying flat on the ground, still like Sleeping Beauty. She showed no signs of waking up. There was no difference from before. Even her breathing and condition did not experience any change. He couldn't help but raise a brow and scowled in displeasement. Old Master, please calm down. This young lady is already healed. She really is all right already. Young Master Jun scoffed, practically scaring Holy Tree out of his wits. He quickly explained, I really have treated her injuries already. If you don't believe it, you can check it thoroughly. I won't dare to lie to you even if I had 100 guts. Towards the end, the Lord Holy Tree's tree voice was cracking a little, about to cry again. Jun Moxie turned around to take a look. He couldn't help but feel startled. The pond that was brimming with life-blood essence was already half gone. In fact, even more than half. There was only a shallow layer of it left, just barely covering the bottom of the pond. It looked like this spineless tree really put in great effort. Since you said you've treated her, why has she not woken up yet? Jun Moxie walked over to Green Hunter, checking her pulse. To his delight, that blood essence of the holy tree really had amazing effects. Green Hunter's pulse has already returned to normal, and there were no irregularities in her heart rate. And her breathing had also returned back to the normal state. Smooth and steady. She only looked like she was in a deep sleep right now. Old Master. This young madam of yours had sustained severe injuries. With that sort of injury, there is no way to salvage the situation, but I believe you used many divine treasures to create an environment that was similar to the natal state, helping her secure the last bit of life that lasted till now. Although she has regained her life force because of my life-blood essence, but because she has been asleep for too long, be it her spiritual, mental, or physical state, she is in the most primordial state. Waking her suddenly will definitely put an enormous strain on her mind and body. If she is unable to take it, it will definitely cause irreversible damages. Lord Holy Tree said indignantly, so she needs Old Master you to help her recuperate for some time. As long as she wakes up naturally from this deep slumber, all sorts of negative side effects will not exist. Lord Holy Tree was really aggrieved. He really was thinking for this sleeping beauty this time. To someone who was in a deep sleep for a few months, no matter how much effort the person taking care of her had put in, no matter what sort of environment they had arranged for her to recuperate in, it could not compare to her feeding herself to her fill. Furthermore, she was someone who was recovering from such a severe injury, practically on the verge of dying. Feeding her a little bit of soup and water daily was already considered good enough. If she was really woken up suddenly, her 5 viscera and 6 bowels or basic bodily functions would not be able to take this strain. This was a process that needed to take place gradually. Of course, the reason why Lord Holy Tree had made this arrangement was also out of consideration for himself. If this sleeping beauty's body could not take the strain upon being woken up, then he would not be falling short of turning into ashes. So Lord Holy Tree really had no other choice. Oh. What you said makes sense. I understand it. Jun Moxie naturally understood these logic. But he was confused due to his concern earlier, so it was unavoidable. Young Master Jun may not be good guy and was definitely twisted and unreasonable most of the time, but he was still reasonable when it was time to be reasonable. Much thanks. Much thanks. Thank you for your understanding. Lord Holy Tree's tears were brimming from his eyes. To get the approval from this robber right in front of him was truly too difficult. You have done very well in handling this matter. I'm very pleased. I will give you what I promised you. But I still have a question that I hope you will answer honestly. This 7-colored holy fruit shouldn't only bear as little as 2 bunches per 500 years, right? Jun Moxie asked, frowning as he looked at him. Lord Holy Tree jolted. Then, it began to perspire like a waterfall. This secret. How did he find out? Is he trying to trick me? Could he? Then, taking another look at Jun Moxie's confident expression, Lord Holy Tree ultimately did not dare to tell any lies. He decided to tell the truth and spill everything. Yes, old master, you are truly sensitive to the finest details. But, old master, I have no choice but to do that. I also want to live. Live? Jun Moxie looked at Lord Holy Tree, a doubtful look in his eyes. What does the quantity of fruits bore have to do with you living? Old master. Everyone in the world will go through the 4 stages of life. This is something that is completely common and usual. In fact, all the living things also fall within these constraints. Lord Holy Tree said bitterly. Take us trees for example. Although we live longer than humans, but we are also restrained by this fate. No matter what sort of spiritual seeds. King of the trees. Even if I can live for 10,000 years, or even 20,000 years, ultimately, there will be a day when I run out of life force, and I'll eventually have to die. This was a fact. There were really not many living things that could escape from this fate. Jun Moxie nodded in agreement, indicating for him to continue speaking. As to the process for trees, I believe Old Master will definitely understand it, so I shall get straight to the point. Hoping to get the 7-colored holy fruit, it'll have to go through bearing flowers before forming fruits. And this is a process that is a huge strain. To us, it is like you humans bearing children. This is something that will hurt our vitality. Every 7-colored holy fruit contains varying amount of life's essence. And they are my savings for 500 years. One of the basic requirements for bearing the holy fruit. If all these life's essences are put into the growth of the fruits, then the entire process is the equivalent of using 500 years of our longevity. Aside from growing a thicker body, and taller, there is essentially no benefit to us. Lord Holy Tree sighed a couple of times. To be honest, us Rainbow Holy Tree, those who are under 5,000 years, can bear 7 bunches of fruit each time. And trees who are 5,000 to 10,000 in age will be able to produce 14. It will increase by a fold for every 5,000 years of age. But if it is maintained at this rate, then our longest lifespan will not exceed 30,000 years before we completely vanish in this world. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1062. 9 Nether First Young Master's Tree. Old Master. Since I had developed a conscious, I am also a living spirit in this world. I also wish to live for a few more years. Even though there is not much meaning living, but being alive is still living. Lord Holy Tree had a bleak and forlorn expression. So, after I understood this, I began to slowly reduce the quantity of holy fruits, until the current 2 bunches. The remaining bunches were refined into life-blood essence to prolong my longevity. Then all gathered here. In preparation when my life gradually comes to an end, I can water myself in it and have that brief moment of breath when I'm at death's door. But now, all my thousands of years of savings have turned into nothing and went to someone else. Lord Holy Tree pointed at that life-blood essence pond bottom, which was almost visible. He really felt like crying. All these were the stocks I had been saving for thousands of years. Because of the arrival of you, this pestilence, I've used up 90% of it within such a short time. I see. Then you cannot be blamed for this. Jun Moxie said magnanimously. Whether misty illusory manner got more or less was not his business. And now, he knew that the rainbow holy tree in his Hongjun pagoda was growing normally. That was enough. Considering the matter on a more shameless level, all the holy tree's life blood essence that had been saved and stashed away by Lord Holy Tree for thousands of years was almost practically used up to save Green Hunter for him. It seemed that he was the one who had taken advantage of the misty illusory manner. If this fellow had been honestly bearing fruits normally, then Green Hunter would really be done for this time. Thank goodness this tree played dirty. Now there is no big issue anymore. Let's chat. How did you come here? Where were you originally from? Jun Moxie was really interested about what sort of place it was to be able to produce this sort of miraculous tree. Could it be another unique space? Back then, I had only just begun to develop a conscience. I still did not dare to speak, or even make any noise. A gloomy look took over Lord Holy Tree's face. That day, a black-robed man suddenly appeared in my hometown. He walked around the forest. For some reason, he picked me. I also don't know where is my hometown. But afterward, I had learned that that black-robed man had a mighty reputation, called the Nether First Young Master. Lord Holy Tree let out a sigh. He did not care whether I agreed or not, simply uprooting me in a single grab without saying a single thing. Uprooted you in a single grab. How big were you then? Jun Moxie was a little shocked. This holy tree had already developed a consciousness. A tree with a consciousness, could it develop it in a short time? It would take at least 2,000 years. A tree that had grown for 2,000 years. Uprooting it in a single grab, so easily? Jun Moxie pretended not to hear the part Lord Holy Tree mentioned the Nether First Young Master not seeking his opinion. Which person in this world would ask a tree, do you agree? When trying to replant a tree. If there was, it was either a retard or a moron. And the Nether First Young Master didn't seem like either of the two. I was definitely thinner than now. And I was much skinnier. About 8 people huddled together. That sort of thickness. Lord Holy Tree said. A little embarrassed. A tree that is about the thickness of 8 people huddled together. One person uprooted it with a single hand? Are you for real? Young Master Jun's eyes were completely widened. What sort of strength is that? This is a little too exaggerated. Of course it's real, he only used a single hand back then. Lord Holy Tree let out a long sigh. Because Lord First Young Master noticed that I grew the most upright. So he chose me from one look. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. Speechless. What sort of selection method is this? It's too unconventional. Then I arrived here and put down my roots. The Nether First Young Master had even personally gave me a name. Lord Holy Tree said. He said, you stand so straight. As if you are punished to stand still for being disobedient. From today onwards, you shall be called a tree that is punished to stand still. A tree that is punished to stand still. It is really a creative name. The corners of Jun Moxie's mouth twitched. This Nether First Young Master was still a little humorous. Which tree in this world didn't stand? Were they all punished to stand still? Actually, I did not commit any offense. I had never commit any crimes before. So naturally I am not punished to stand still. Lord Holy Tree explained innocently. I actually also wish to lie down. But I can't lie down. Ah. You actually wish to lie down? Should I get you a bed? Ah. The corner of Jun Moxie's lips twitched again. He was really utterly defeated. A tree also wished to lie down. All right. Let's not waste any more time. I'm in a rush. The power that grows all wood that you wish for. Should I give it to you, so you can slowly digest it? Or should I directly digest it for you? Jun Moxie has completely lost interest in chatting with this innocent tree. Lord Holy Tree clearly hesitated for a while, as if he couldn't make up his mind on which to pick. But he still could not conceal the happiness in his eyes. He really did not expect that someone this unreasonable would keep his promises. He was so happy he almost laughed out loud. If I helped you digest, you will be able to see the benefits quickly. If you are to slowly absorb it bit by bit, maybe it will be able to help you resolve a crisis when needed. Jun Moxie gave a clear explanation. These two proposals have their own benefits. I have already given you the suggestions. As to which choice to make, it is up to you to decide. Lord Holy Tree considered for a long time before finally gritting his teeth and saying, I better choose to slowly digest it myself. To him, it was no longer a pressing matter for increasing his growth. Because he no longer had large amounts of life-blood essence to support himself. So that goal he had previously has already gone up in smoke. Perhaps everything needed to restart from the beginning. But young Master Jun had mentioned that the second proposal can help him resolve a huge crisis for him, which caused him to waver. The wearing down of nature and whittling away by time. Or even, the terrifying lightning tribulation when he developed a human form. So Lord Holy Tree immediately chose the second proposal. Giving himself control over the pace. Digesting it slowly like this to achieve the most perfect effects. This was more beneficial in the long run. All right. Then I'm going to begin. You get ready to receive it. Jun Moxie did not drag things out. Stretching out his left palm. A green glow began to form on his palm. Slowly increasing to the size of a soccer ball. Lord Holy Tree couldn't help but drool at the sight of that green light. Slowly, Jun Moxie continued to increase the size of this ball of light to bigger than a soccer ball before coming to a stop. Then, he used the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to coat this green ball with a milky white protective layer. When you want to use the power of wood, you only need to use a thin root to pierce through this layer and use as much as you wish. If you do not intend to use it all, then you can use spiritual chi to seal up this opening. If you carefully store it, it should be able to remain without any expiry. Jun Moxie carefully explained the way to use it. The gains from today were not small. Jun Moxie naturally would not be petty. This tree may be a little cowardly, but he was very honest. And did not play any tricks. Since he treated Jun Moxie in a sincere manner, Jun Moxie naturally would not be stingy. Thank you. Thank you. I really thank you this time. Lord Holy Tree kept that ball of green light as if it were a treasure. Agitated tears filling his eyes. He had never expected the other party to give himself so much power to grow all wood of his own accord. This one was much bigger than the one he had used previously to tempt him earlier. And it was also much purer. So its effects naturally were greater. This had surpassed his expectations. He originally did not harbor any hopes that the other party would keep to his promise and give him the power to grow all wood. It would be good enough if he didn't kill him. With this amount of power to grow all wood, If he used it appropriately, he could definitely replenish all that life-blood essence in a short period of time. And there was also another great benefit. That layer of spiritual chi surrounding the power to grow all wood was a magical type of energy that the holy tree had never seen before. Although it was not in large quantity, it was enough to open a new door for him. In fact, in this world, only Mei Shuayan had the opportunity to obtain this sort of spirit energy aside from young Master Jun. To the holy tree. Although he has suffered great losses today, but the opportunity today had unimaginable impacts in his future. But this fellow was too honest to say that, "I really thank you this time," which meant he was saying that all the thanks he had given previously were all fake. Jun Moxie chuckled. He did not take it to heart. With his behavior earlier, if the other party really thanked him sincerely, then that person would really be a moron or an idiot. Young Master Jun carefully kept Green Hunter's body back into the Hongjun Pagoda and waved his hand, bidding farewell. Right now, he had more or less set his heart on speeding home now. After gaining a great advantage, Lord Holy Tree reluctantly sent Jun Moxie to the door, suddenly tugging on his sleeves. He said, Old Master. Could you help me pass a message to these juniors of the misty illusory manor? What is it? Jun Moxie turned around to look at him. Tell them, stop sending people to test some compatibility. Sending a person every 100 years. I'm about to lose it. Lord Holy Tree said, as if he were really going to break down. If they are not lacking the manpower, just let them send someone who can live for a longer time. That's fine too. Oh. I may just be a tree that is punished to stand still, but I also have human emotions and feelings. And they change a person every 200-300 years. I had just gotten familiar with the previous person. We had yet to understand each other better. Then they're changed away. This sort of feeling is too unbearable. Lord Holy Tree was really at a loss. A feeling like this was like watching a friend leaving for a faraway place suddenly, never to return. It was also like what you humans say about the father watching his progeny die before himself. This sort of repeated torment. I really can no longer take it. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1063. Time to leave. Jun Moxie came to a sudden realization, and a sincere feeling of pity rose in his heart. The holy tree was the only living creature with a conscience in this space. The people from the misty illusory manor that arrived all treat the holy tree respectfully, worshipping him like a god. And that was the most upsetting period of time for the holy tree for losing his old friend. Finally getting familiar after a few 100 years. That person was at the end of his lifespan, with not much longer to live. Something like this. If a human were to bear this mental torture, he'd have gone insane a long time ago. Looks like this tree has already endured almost 10,000 years of this. At least 50 times of this similar painful experience. No wonder his emotions were so unstable right now. As if he were going through menopause. It couldn't be helped. It was like a bride who had married 50 husbands but all of them died halfway. I will help you relay the message. Jun Moxie nodded his head sincerely. Many thanks. When sending Jun Moxie off, Lord Holy Tree genuinely revealed some reluctance. With a whoosh, Jun Moxie was sent flying out. Behind him, the branches of the rainbow holy tree curled into a ball, its leaves rustling. Its thick trunk was also vaguely shaking. Although they did not spend a long time together, but the exhilarating feeling of opposing each other with equal harshness earlier was a first in Lord Holy Tree's entire life. especially when he received a great benefit from Jun Moxie at the end. Of course, he had also forked out a lot. But Lord Holy Tree's naive and innocent childlike emotions were unable to accept young Master Jun's departure. The rustling of the branches and leaves were clearly his sobs. Then there was a strong gust of wind and the entire towering figure of the rainbow holy tree suddenly vanished completely. Jun Xie. From afar, Miao Xiao Miao's elated cries could be heard. She came dashing over, quickly hugging Jun Moxie with such great force that they were practically about to merge into one. Miao Xiao Miao was laughing happily when her tears suddenly began to fall. Pressing herself into Jun Moxie's chest, she began to sob. The tears instantly left a soaking wet patch on Jun Moxie's clothes. These were not only tears of fear that she had held back. It was also the tears of her delight and her happiness. Although Jun Moxie was only gone for half a day, but during this short period of time, to Miao Xiao Miao, it was as if a few centuries. Miao Xiao Miao almost gave up all hope a couple of times. The loneliness of this wait was extremely tormenting to a young, teenage girl. If it was not for her firm belief that Jun Moxie would definitely return, Miao Xiao Miao may have broken down a long time ago. Now, Jun Moxie had managed to return without a single scratch on him. How could she not be overjoyed at the turn of events? Don't worry. I am fine. I've never been better. Jun Moxie gently patted her back and comforted her gently. From far away, Miao Huanyu silently watched this couple that was in a tight embrace, feeling extremely heartened. Although the holy tree still did not pick a successor, but it was a father's greatest joy to know that his daughter was in good hands. Compared to this, nothing else was important. The skies began to darken and it was time to leave the spiritual herbal gardens. The three of them slowly walked to the entrance. Miao Jingyun and the rest were already waiting there. Upon seeing the three of them, he excitedly began to ask about the matter of the next successor. Miao Huanyu sighed and told them all about it. Everyone was disappointed. But Jun Moxie stepped out and mentioned the holy tree's request. Everyone fell into deep thoughts. Even for us humans with short lifespans, we are unable to easily accept the parting of life and death. What more? A tree that has a conscious and long life? I believe this is undoubtedly an extreme torture to him. And besides, it is a painful experience that repeats itself again and again. You all are only concerned about the benefits of the misty illusory manner, but have never considered for the holy tree's feelings. This is an unwise move. Jun Moxie was very direct and unreasonable in his words. But this speech left everyone present silent. Jun Moxie naturally would not convey the words as they were originally. He had slightly altered it too. The holy tree wishes that the current lord of the spiritual herbal gardens, Miao Huanyu, can continue to remain, and if possible, for a long time. In this way, the stability of the strength and position of the Miao family was an irrefutable matter, which was equivalent to Jun Moxie doing a huge favor for the Miao family again. Selecting a person to take over is a troublesome matter. We had indeed thought of letting someone continue doing this job, but it's a pity. Guan Yu's physique is truly too weak. He is only past the level of a spirit Xian. Even if he wished to do it for a long time, how long could he keep at it? Miao Jingyun furrowed his brows and said, if it were not because of this, why would we let the holy tree select a compatible and suitable person within such a short span of time? Lord Holy Tree naturally had made considerations for this aspect. He let me bring something out to pass to Uncle Miao. Jun Moxie gritted his teeth. Take it as for Miao Xiao Miao's sake. He absolutely mustn't see the power of the Miao Miao family decline. Jun Moxie reached into his robes, as if he was trying to retrieve something. In fact, he had plucked a bunch of the 7-colored holy fruit from the Hongjun pagoda, and at the same time, converted 3 heaven extremes pill into the purest form of spiritual qi and infused it into the flesh of the fruit. Then he also cut a small portion of the exquisite lotus and injected it in too, using the power of wood to fuse it all. When he brought his hand out again, there were a bunch of 7-colored holy fruit in his hands. All of them were ripened to the size of a peach, much bigger than those 7-colored holy fruit that the misty illusory manor was collecting. It was obvious that they were not like any other ordinary fruit. This is what Lord Holy Tree asked me to deliver. It is a bunch of divine grade 7-colored holy fruit that can only be cultivated every 5,000 years. After consuming this fruit, it will allow Uncle Miao to gain 1,000 years of strength and longevity with no side effects. 1,000 years of strength and longevity. It seemed that Jun Moxie had already taken down a peg. Just the 7-colored holy fruit was already bigger than the bunch the misty illusory manor had given young Master Jun. And now, it was infused with the exquisite lotus. These 2 divine treasures were grown in the Hongjun pagoda, so they were superior to the original ones by multiple folds. Just the combined effects of these 2 items could at the very least increase one's strength and longevity by 1,000 years. And these were merely the effects of the holy fruit and the exquisite lotus. The prolonged lifespan that came with advancement in the Xian cultivation had yet to be included in the calculations. Besides, there was still those 3 heaven extremes pill. That was 180 years worth of purest Xian qi. It was sufficient to make Miao Huanyu go straight to the peak levels of a spirit Xian. The combined effects of the 2 spiritual fruits was enough to make him rush straight through into the realm of a 4th level venerable. And even with a chance of breaking through the saint realm. If everything went smoothly, the original longevity of Miao Huanyu would be lengthened by almost 1,000 years because of his Xian cultivation. Coupled with the additional 1,000 years from the holy fruit. That was almost 2,000 years worth of lifespan. Everyone's jaws dropped. Such a heaven-defying thing existed in this world. The breathing of all the old men present became heavier instantly. I repeat again. This is what Lord Holy Tree specially designated for Uncle Miao. Jun Moxie frowned. This bunch of old fogies are looking a little off. They wouldn't. Nonsense. Who doesn't know that it's for Huanyu? We are all feeling agitated only. Are we really able to snatch it? Putting it in a bad way, even if we wish to snatch it. Are you capable of holding us back? Is there a need for you to emphasize that Lord Holy Tree had specifically given it to your father-in-law? A venerable yelled, glaring as his nostrils flared angrily. All the other old men also laughed embarrassed. They may make it sound pleasant, but they were all tempted. After all, it was a divine treasure that was capable of increasing one's strength and longevity by 1,000 years. But upon hearing that this was what Holy Tree had specifically designated for the Lord of the spiritual herbal gardens, none of them dared to snatch for it even if they had the guts. This was a divine grade 7-colored holy fruit that was produced every 5,000 years. Who dared to snatch it? If this incurred the rage of the Lord Holy Tree, and he went on strike because of this, what do? Then wasn't the spiritual herbal gardens done for? Besides, the Holy Tree had handed this sort of heavenly treasure to Mo Jun Xie. Mo Jun Xie completely had the opportunity to hoard it for himself. But he didn't. What sort of broad-mindedness was this? If they had developed other thoughts, wouldn't that make them worse than a beast? Not even comparable to a mere junior? Miao Jingyun's face was completely red. Even his white beard was trembling. Amongst all those who are present here, he was the most delighted. His joy even surpassed that of Miao Huanyu himself. After all, Miao Huanyu is his son, and the son and father's hearts were linked. Miao Jingyun's greatest concern had always been his son's health. Today, this problem was solved just like this. 2,000 years. Ah, that is sufficient. Miao Xiao Miao was even more elated, laughing and skipping about excitedly, tugging on her father's hands to spin around, like an innocent young girl. She did not know how else to express and vent the joy in her heart. Oh right. Lord Holy Tree also mentioned, the advancement from the effects of this divine grade holy fruit have no side effects on the body. But as the effects are too defiant of the natural order, they will definitely attract a heavenly tribulation. It would be best if you can find a place to temporarily hide from the heavenly tribulation first. Wait until the medicinal effects have been completely digested before coming out to go through the tribulations. That way, it can ensure that there will be no losses. Jun Moxie reminded with a smile. The previous matter with Miao Xiao Miao mustn't have a repeat of itself. Right. Right. As expected, Lord Holy Tree is most considerate in his thoughts. I will have a way for this matter. All is taken care of. Ha ha ha. Today is a joyous occasion. Miao Jingyun laughed happily, stroking his beard confidently and gleefully. This sort of repulsive expression of arrogance and confidence made all the other experts who came in feeling extremely sour internally. What joyous occasion! It is a joyous occasion for your Miao family. We didn't even get any gains. And not only did we not get it this time, it's likely that there is no hope for us for the next thousands of years. We can only drool. Is this a great joy? More like a great tragedy. Miao Jingyun personally kept the 7 holy fruits away. Miao Dao and Miao Jian followed after him all the way, hurrying back to the misty illusory manor through the passage that connected the spiritual herbal gardens and the misty illusory manor. Delays may bring more unexpected changes or troubles. The best option now was to immediately let Miao Huanyu go to where old ancestor Miao Qingcheng was the moment they got back. Then let him completely digest the medicinal effects of the 7-colored holy fruit. With the old ancestor around, allowing Miao Huanyu to advance until he can safely face the heavenly tribulation. Wasn't that a simple feat? In the midst of the joyous mood, Jun Moxie also mentioned his intentions to return to his hometown. The reason was simple but clear: he still had kin outside. If he intended to stay in the misty illusory manor for a long time, he would ultimately have to bring them in. Miao Huanyu agreed quickly this time, giving a simple order of making it a quick trip, before disappearing. After all, the top priority right now was to let Miao Huanyu successfully advance. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1064. Opening of the Evil Monarch's Faction. Just as he was about to leave the misty illusory manor, Jun Moxie suddenly remembered something: the 9 Nether 14th Young Master's divine tune. This was a matter that fellow had once repeatedly reminded me to do. I had completely forgotten about it. If I go out, and that fellow asks me about it, it would not be easy to answer. There's no other way. I'll try to ask around and find out some news about it. Wait. Jun Moxie aborted the idea. If I open my mouth and ask about it, then if this thing goes missing in the future, they'll definitely suspect me. That divine tune of the 9 Nether 14th Young Master was made from the 9 Nether Frost Blades, which meant that there would be the eerie aura from the 9 Nethers on it. Taking out a 9 Nether Frost Blade from the Hongjun Pagoda and confirming its aura, Jun Moxie's spiritual sense began to silently spread out. slowly hovering in the skies of the entire misty illusory manor, actually sensing for that unique aura of the 9 nethers. In a place that was full of holy aura like the misty illusory manor, where the air was extremely clean and pure, this sort of nefarious aura should be rather easy to find. And Jun Moxie's target was mostly focused on the main palace of the misty illusory manor. After a thorough search, he finally discovered that there was a peculiar object that was sealed within the secret chamber of the main palace. And the aura it gave off was the same as the 9 nether frost blade. Jun Moxie heaved a sigh of relief. The secret chamber of the main palace would definitely have tight security. But this was the case for most people. But for Jun Moxie, no matter how tight the security was, it was ineffective against him. Jun, are you going to fetch big sister back this time? Miao was visibly anxious, rubbing the hem of her shirt as she hung her head low. Will big sister be unwilling to come? If she comes, and finds out that you and I, will she be angry at you? She wouldn't. She has good temper and is very gentle. Jun Moxie comforted, laughing bitterly in his head. Those few ladies at home, none of them should be described with the words gentle. More like a bunch of tigress or vinegar jars. Although I have many gains this time, but the troublesome wave of jealousy is inevitable. Jun, don't worry. I will definitely do my part and serve big sister properly. If she doesn't accept me, then I'll kneel and beg her until she is willing to accept me. Miao garnered her courage and looked at Jun Moxie. Jun, if big sister is unwilling to accept me, don't worry about me. And don't try to speak up for me. Let me handle this matter. All right? Jun Moxie looked at her, feeling extremely perplexed. It looked like this silly lass imagined about his other wife whenever she had the free time. Imagining the situations she had to face in the future, how they were going to get along in the future, and even in the event that the other party was hostile towards her, how she would resolve it. And the starting and ending point of all these was all because of one reason and outcome, for himself. Because she loved him. When faced with a woman that loved himself so deeply, a woman that moves him, Jun Moxie truly felt deeply moved. He suddenly asked. Miao. If I leave misty illusory manor, never to return, would you be willing to live in the outside world with me? Never to return? How can that be? Miao was shocked upon hearing these words. Then she looked at him for a while, her eyes wide opened, before silently saying, I am yours. No matter where you are, I will follow. Be at the end of the world, in heaven or hell, wherever you go, I'll follow. Miao's voice may be soft, but her resolve and determination were obvious. Jun Moxie let out a low sigh, pulling her into his embrace as he muttered, My love doesn't abandon me, and I will not abandon my love. My love doesn't abandon me. I will not abandon my love. Miao's eyes watered as she leaned against Jun Moxie's chest as she mumbled. Till the ends of the world. Heaven or hell. Life after life. Never to abandon or leave. Following through life and death. Her petite body was trembling, but in every sentence, every word was enunciated extremely clearly, and exceptionally, as if she were using her heart and soul and everything to make this regretless vow that will never change, before the vast heaven and earth. On that night, Miao abandoned all her duties, taking the initiative to pull Jun Moxie into her chambers, tearfully joining her body with Jun Moxie as one, as if she were trying to melt herself into his body so that he could bring her along. Miao had an odd premonition, with this departure. Her Jun Yi, would never return again. A woman's instincts were exceptionally accurate. Whether Jun Moxie returned to the misty illusory manor after today, the great prodigy Mo with the free and natural physique, Monarch Jun Xie, was destined to never appear in the world again. Jun Moxie's objectives for this trip had been accomplished, and he had significant gains from it. But he had ultimately been away from home for too long, especially when there was not much time left from the war for seizing the heavens. He truly wished to rush straight home. But right now, his heart was painfully heavy. Xiao Miao. Miao Miao. My woman, what should I do the next time we meet? What should you do? Monarch Jun Xie is Jun Moxie. But Jun Moxie is not Monarch Jun Xie. The second day, before dawn broke, Jun Moxie had already gotten up. He left behind another bunch of 7-colored holy fruit, and especially left a note. This bunch was the top-grade 7-colored holy fruit that the holy tree had gifted Madame Miao. The effects were weaker than the one given to Miao Huanyu, but it still required 2,000 years to grow. This 7-colored holy fruit could increase the longevity of the person eating it by 1,000 years, but did not have the effect of increasing their strength. Precisely because of this, even someone who does not have any cultivation foundations can safely consume it. This 7-colored holy fruit may only have one effect, but it had much lesser restrictions, so it would easily tempt others to try and steal it. As there were many people present, he did not bring it out back then. Then, young Master Jun gently walked over the bed and landed a gentle kiss on Miao Xiao Miao's face, before finally turning away to leave. Under someone's guide, Jun Moxie silently left misty illusory manor. When Jun Moxie was talking down from Miao Xiao Miao's chamber, he clearly heard the discreet sound of 2 drops of tears landing on the pillow. Since she knew that she was about to part from her beloved, how could Miao Xiao Miao really remain asleep? But she was unwilling to do anything that would affect her lover's decision. If he wished to go, then let him go with a peace of mind. After he left this place, he would belong to another woman, who was also bitterly waiting for him, a woman who also loved him deeply. I must not be so selfish to monopolize him and not let him go. But the griping pain in her heart had caused this wise, strong princess of misty illusory manor to bite tightly on her handkerchief, tears flowing down her face. June, come back soon. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you forever. This heart will not change, and there will be no regrets. When Chao Guofeng and the other 6 saint emperors woke up in the morning, the 7 of them discovered that they had gained 180 years' worth of Xian Qi out of nowhere. This shocking change had practically pushed all these 7 saint emperors to the level of a saint venerable. Especially Chao Guofeng, who was the strongest amongst the 7. He went straight to the peak of a first-level saint venerable. This peculiar change left these 7 involved parties baffled. This was too bizarre. It had only been a night. And to be more exact, it was only the duration of a night of sleep. They had already break through to Saint Venerable, and all 7 of them brothers broke through together. Could another miracle happen in this courtyard again? They had originally intended to tail Jun Moxie after he went out, to protect him secretly. But after they had broken through, they were bound to face the lightning tribulations that came with it. So they had to give up their original plans and get through the tribulation safely first. It was not too late to go after that. Saint Emperor Chao and the 6 other saint emperors went through the tribulations together, becoming an eternal, lasting legend in the misty illusory manor. What Jun Moxie didn't know was that the moment he stepped out of the misty illusory manor, someone delivered an invitation letter into the headquarters of the misty illusory manor. Right now, That invitation letter was placed on the desk of the misty illusory manor's manor lord, Miao Jing Yun's table. This invitation letter was completely made from gold. On it, there were writings that were clearly carved by hand. The construction cost of this invitation letter alone was considerable. And it was said that almost 10,000 copies of this invitation letter were sent out. The words on it were not big, but they were bossy and domineering and insufferably arrogant. And the contents inside were even more haughty. 15th of June. The dragon amongst clouds, tiger amongst the winds, looking down at everything from high up with an indisputable dignity. Evil monarch. Sincerely sending this invite, specially inviting the misty illusory manor as my guest for the opening ceremony of my faction. Evil monarch. Jun Moxie. Miao Jingyun furrowed his brows deeply. The evil monarch opening his faction meant that there was going to be another superpower that was above the secular powers aside from 3 holy lands and the misty illusory manor. And this force was one that no one could ignore. It was enough to affect the entire world. It broke the balance of the 4 factions in the world that had existed throughout time. This evil monarch Jun Moxie was truly outrageous and bold. This lad surnamed Jun is a little too haughty. Forget that he had been showing off his military strength and riding roughshod over people in the Xian continent. Now he is trying to open his own faction, and even sent an invitation letter to us. The misty illusory manor? He truly doesn't know the limits of his own strength. Miao Dao had an exceptionally bad expression on his face. Who did he think he, Jun Moxie, is? We, misty illusory manor, are an existence that rules above Xian continent. What is he taking us for? We must go just because he has sent an invitation letter? What a joke. Miao Jian was also furious. This little evil monarch who had just started to make a name for himself may have some strength and luck and a certain amount of forces. It was not uncommon for him to be dominating the secular world. But he actually was so bold to think of setting up his own faction and rule alongside with the originally few peak superpowers. This was a little overestimating his own capabilities. And to even send misty illusory manor an invite. And wording was so distasteful. It truly was. According to the calendar of Xian continent, what day is it today? Miao Jingyun slowly asked, still in deep thoughts. The 3rd day of June. Miao Dao replied affirmatively. There is still 3 months' time from the war for seizing the heavens on the 3rd day of September. Although the misty illusory manor had never been involved in the war for seizing the heavens, but they were extremely clear of the timing. Manor Lord, could it be that you mean that we are going? Miao Jian looked at Miao Jingyun with an incredulous look. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1065. Miao Jingyun's suspicion. From the looks of it, we have no choice but to go. Miao Jingyun sighed and shook his head. The purpose of this is naturally not because of that evil monarch's so-called power and influence, but something else. He paused for a moment and continued. That evil monarch had many conflicts with the 3 holy lands in the past, and their relationship is like fire and water, completely incompatible. Now that his wings have grown strong, he's starting a sect in such a grand and showy manner. This move may seem arrogant, but I reckon it's something that has been decided only after much consideration. Because the war for seizing the heavens is about to begin. At such a time, the 3 holy lands would surely not dare to continue fighting against the evil monarch and will stop everything to prepare for the war. Only after repelling the outside threat can one deal with internal battles. One has to admit that this June brat chose a very good time for this. Miao Jing said with a faint smile. So right now, no matter how much grandeur this evil monarch stirs up right now, the three holy lands would not dare to move any troops. Even if there was an exceedingly urgent problem, it would have to wait until after the war for seizing the heavens. That's why this evil monarch Jun Moxie chose to establish his faction at this time. One could say that the timing was judged with complete perfection. Apart from this timing, if he stuck his head out at any other time, he would definitely receive the joint attack of the entire three holy lands. In fact, the Heaven Saint Palace might even interfere as well. After all, the effect of a new superpower in the Xian continent is a huge threat towards the original delicate power balance. This is not something that the peak powers would be willing to see. So although I don't know what the exact situation is on the evil monarch's side in terms of cultivation strength, but their ability to fish in troubled waters is undoubtedly unrivaled in the world. Now that the evil monarch has started his own faction, the three holy lands will definitely send someone over as well. Because with the current strength of the three holy lands, they are definitely unable to deal with the war for seizing the heavens on their own. Therefore, they must contact Jun Moxie and ask him to send out his forces for the war for seizing the heavens. As for us, the reason we have to attend as well is because there's a need for us to understand the current power structure of the Xian continent, as well as the general strength of both sides. Though we cannot decide which faction to side with, staying neutral in the middle will only offend both sides, and the loss will be greater for us. Miao Jing continued. Based on the current situation alone, this matter may be an excellent time for the evil monarch. But to us, it's also a great chance to make a fortune. Because our misty illusory manor is now in a position where we haven't decided who to side with, but before we make an official choice, we are an entity that both sides would not dare to offend. I believe that the two sides will definitely use all methods to try to pull us over. That will be an opportunity for us to make use of. Thus, this trip is one where we're going to gain lots of benefits. Why wouldn't we go? With that explanation, Miao Dao and Miao Jian widened their eyes with realization. Although their cultivations were strong, they were not familiar with politics, so these kinds of things were difficult for them to see. There's another matter. I've been having a very strange feeling in my heart these past few days. Has Mo Jun Xie left already? Miao Jing suddenly shifted the topic to Mo Jun Xie halfway through his words. Yes. He left the misty illusory manor early this morning. Miao Jian said. Miao Jing furrowed his brows and thought deeply for a moment. This matter will be headed by sixth uncle, and the Zhan family will go as support. If you two want, you can go over and join in the fun as well. What fun is there in that? Too pointless. Not going. Miao Dao rejected directly. Is there anything fun outside? Grandpa, the evil monarch is holding an opening ceremony? I want to take a look as well. Miao Xiao skipped over and said. After Jun Moxie left, Miao Xiao immediately regretted that she hadn't left with him. With her waiting here like this, when that elder sister came later, wouldn't she blame her for putting on airs? Truthfully, it was because Miao Xiao already felt an empty feeling in her heart not even 4 hours after Mo Jun Xie left. She felt as if she'd lost her soul, and her entire body was uncomfortable as hell. After sitting around uneasily for a long time, Miao Xiao still decided to look for her grandpa and ask him to let her go out to look for Mo Jun Xie, but when she reached the door, she'd heard the news about the evil monarch. Seeing her chance, she quickly volunteered. You? The three old fellows furrowed their brows together. With Miao Xiao's strength as a second-level venerable, It was naturally sufficient for her to go anywhere in Xian continent. But this lass was overly innocent, and they were afraid that she would get tricked outside. Grandpa, let me go please. Miao Xiao Miao latched herself onto her grandfather's arm and whined. I want to go that Jun Moxie who is supposedly an even greater genius than Jun Xie. I want to see just how formidable he is. In Miao Xiao Miao's heart, Jun Xie was the most outstanding person in the world. But in recent times, the fame of the evil monarch Jun Moxie, which was supposedly of around the same age as her, had already spread widely in the outside world, as if he were a god. Before she was with Jun Xie, Miao Xiao Miao did not think much of it at all. It's none of my business even if he was more formidable. But now, she was completely unresigned to it. I don't believe that there's a man that's more outstanding than my Jun Xie in this world. If she went out, she could take the chance to let that dog fart Jun Moxie suffer a bit. At the same time, she could go and look for Jun Xie. If she could go with him to meet that elder sister and display her sincerity, wouldn't that be better? A genius that's even more formidable than the Jun Xie who has the free and natural physique. Miao Jingyun narrowed his eyes as he sunk into deep thoughts. Who knows if my guess is right? I hope it's wrong. He thought back to the words that old ancestor Miao Qingcheng had said when he sent Miao Huanyu into the underground space yesterday. Is that kid who came last time still in the misty illusory manner? Miao Jingyun had answered promptly. He's still here. But he requested today to go out. And I've already agreed. If Ancestor wants to see him, I can bring him back any time. Miao Qingcheng shook his head heavily and said, There's no need to trouble yourself with that. You need to form a good relationship with that kid and never let your guard down. Above all, you must not offend him. After saying that, the old ancestor continued in a mysterious manner. If not for him, that child Huanyu might not have the chance to come here. Although Miao Qingcheng's voice was light, Miao Jingyun had clearly heard his words, and he could scarcely believe his ears. Jun Xie, the old ancestor's evaluation of him was actually so high. Just why was that so? Could it be that, even the heaven-ranked 7-colored holy fruits that Huanyu had obtained was something that the holy tree had given only because of that kid? Miao Jingyun was about to ask again, but Miao Qingcheng was no longer interested to dwell on the topic. He only said another sentence. The misty illusory manner's danger is gone. After that, he was dismissed. Because of this sentence and Miao Jingyun's suspicion, he'd sent the Zhan family out this time for the opening ceremony of the evil monarch's faction. If his guess was right, the people from the Zhan family would likely not return after going out this time, since they'd seriously offended Jun Xie before. Miao Jingyun didn't dare to say too much and came out quietly. Just as he reached the door, he happened to hear Miao Qingcheng asking Miao Huanyu something. After hearing that Jun Xie had already become Miao Huanyu's son-in-law, he suddenly roared with laughter saying, So that's how it is. That's how it is. Ha ha ha. Miao Jingyun's suspicion grew even heavier as he heard those words. The old ancestor's words seemed to have some meaning within them. But as for what that meaning was, he would have to find that out for himself. The main thing was undoubtedly that Jun Xie. The news of the investigations that had come in from the outside had truly shocked Miao Jingyun greatly. The person Jun Xie did not seem to exist in the outside world at all. If there were truly such a person, how could someone with that kind of talent be completely unknown? Jun Xie's obscurity had already exceeded the realms of a human. This person seemed to have jumped from a stone. At this time, Miao Jingyun suddenly had a very bold conjecture. What if the name Jun Xie was fake? And his true identity was someone else? If that's the case, there was only one person who fit that level of talent and age. Jun Moxie. He'd considered this matter for an entire night. So when Miao proposed to go out and take a look, Miao Jingyun could not help but to think about this again. It's also good to let Miao go and see. All right. Since you want to go out and play so much, you can follow your sixth uncle out. Miao Jingyun said with a faint smile. The two of you. It looks like you can't avoid this trip. Go with Miao and guard her. Grandpa is the best. Miao exclaimed with joy as she jumped up and gave Miao Jingyun a kiss as she dashed away like a gust of wind to prepare. Miao Dao and Miao Jian widened their eyes with some shock. Their responsibilities were originally to protect the Manor Lord. Although Miao was the Manor Lord's favorite, it wasn't to the point where she would get such treatment. Originally, it should be the most suitable for Chao Guofeng, Bai Chi Feng, and the rest to go. But as they'd only just broken through not long ago, they would most likely need to undergo their tribulation in these few days. There's no other people I can trust, Miao Jingyun said in a low voice. Miao Dao and Miao Jian looked at each other, not knowing the meaning in those words. After that, Miao Jingyun sent a voice transmission directly into their ears and secretly told them a sentence. Miao Dao and Miao Jian instantly turned pale, and their mouths gaped. This matter is confidential, and I haven't confirmed it as well. The two of you just need to keep this in mind. Don't even tell Miao or sixth uncle, Miao Jingyun said in a low voice. The two of you just need to be aware of the possibility. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1066. Extreme Power. Yes. Miao Dao and Miao Jian exchanged a glance and replied together. The Evil Monarch Manor's opening ceremony is going to be held within the jungle outside Tiannan City. With your speed, you should be able to reach there in at most 5 days by riding on our flying Xian beasts. It'll be enough time as long as you set out before the 5th day of the 6th month. You shouldn't turn up late, but there's also no need to arrive early, Miao Jingyun instructed slowly. If that matter is truly verified, how should we proceed? Miao Dao asked. Everything will wait until you return to the misty illusory manor, Miao Jingyun said sternly. Even if you really manage to verify it, you must not act rashly. The ancestor is wise and has great foresight. You must remember to not act rashly at all cost. Yes. The two replied together. Later, the two of you will personally go and inform the Zhan family and make your own preparations. Just at this time, someone rushed in hurriedly and reported, Manor Lord. Something weird has happened. That personal weapon belonging to the Nether 14th young master that had been kept in the secret chamber has gone missing. The guards on duty had not discovered anything strange, and even the 7-layered locks on the doors were completely fine. There aren't any traces of any forced entry inside as well, but the item is missing, as if it had just evaporated into thin air. The messenger had a look of complete horror on his face. Even he himself would not have believed the words that had just come out of his mouth. This matter was truly too ridiculously strange. But the truth was exactly like that. The Nether 14th young master's personal weapon is missing. Miao Jingyun actually didn't fly into a rage. Instead, he sighed heavily and mumbled something to himself. After that, he raised his head and closed his eyes. A long time later, he said heavily, All right, you may go. When he opened his eyes again, his pupils that had always been filled with wisdom and confidence were now wavering with doubt. Could it be that this world was really about to change? This world could be said to have been peaceful for over 10,000 years now. Ever since the three holy lands and the misty illusory manor was established, and with the addition of Tian Fa Forest as the fifth great land, there had never been any major wars. But right now, this fine balance was going to be broken by force. The evil monarch had, at such a stormy time, suddenly established his own faction. And the 9 Nether 14th young master's weapon, which had been stowed away carefully for many years, had gone missing. What kind of omen was all this pointing to? Today, Mo Jun Xie had left the misty illusory manor. And today, the evil monarch's invitation card had also arrived. And on the same day, the divine tune that had been kept in the most secure area of the misty illusory manor went missing. As he organized his thoughts, Miao Jingyun suddenly began to laugh, truly interesting awe. Mo Jun Xie. Such far-sightedness. Such precise calculations, even if I want to underestimate you, it's impossible awe. No wonder the old ancestor viewed you so highly. But, this old man will like to see how you answer to my granddaughter in the future. How you will answer to the Miao family. The most difficult debt to return in this world is the debt of gratitude. This brat owed so much debt of gratitude this time. I'll like to see how you pay it back. Miao Jingyun's guess was basically not wrong. But the only thing was that he had actually wronged Jun Moxie. Young Master Jun had only just left the misty illusory manor. And he didn't know about the matter of the evil monarch manor opening ceremony. Unfortunately, Miao Jingyun had already pinned the matter onto his head. Manor Lord, since Old Sixth is going, why is there a need for the Zhan family to go as well? Miao Dao said after a short hesitation. Even if, we're still giving this evil monarch too much face by attending the ceremony with such a great lineup. The Old Sixth was actually of the same generation as Miao Dao and Miao Jian, whereas Miao Jingyun was of a younger generation. Thus, Miao Jingyun addressed him as Sixth Uncle, while Miao Dao and Miao Jian directly called him Old Sixth. No. If my guesses are not wrong, the Zhan family's party will end rather bloodily. Miao Jingyun said with a sly smile. Dao, Jian, don't you think that the Zhan family's share of power in the misty illusory manor is a little too much now? Manor Lord is wise. Miao Jian was completely convinced by him this time. The two of them had only known painstaking cultivation and did not have any deep understanding of such sinister measures. However, they could also sense the power of the Zhan family and their obvious intentions to replace the Miao Jian at the top. Furthermore, their small actions had become quite frequent. From the looks of it, Miao Jingyun had already hardened his heart this time to weaken the Zhan family. Compared to the calm in the misty illusory manor, the three holy lands' side was so angered that they nearly exploded. According to the news they received, the evil monarch Jun Moxie was going to set up a new manor at the edge of Tian Fa Forest and formally announce their positions as a new superpower of the Xian continent in a few days. In practically the same instant, the three lords of the three holy lands all shattered their cups and flipped over their tables. At the same time, their enraged howls rang out from different places, piercing through the heavens. These big characters that had always behaved loftily and looked down upon the world suddenly felt as if they'd been slapped harshly across their faces. Too despicable. Too arrogant. But right now was the most crucial period right before the war for seizing the heavens, and they couldn't afford to start an internal fight. If there was anything that Jun Moxie was unhappy with, the latter could easily create troubles for them during the war for seizing the heavens. So although the three Holy Lands were all incredibly vexed, they could only act in contrast to their feelings, and go forth to congratulate the evil monarch on the establishment of his new faction. Not only must they go, they have to arrive with great gifts, borne by people of status in their respective Holy Lands, to show their sincerity. Despite clearly knowing that there was a disgusting fly in their food, they still had to pretend that they didn't see it and eat the food with satisfied smiles as if it was the most delicious food in the world. To force others to such a level, wasn't that infuriating others to the point where they would vomit blood? Not to mention the lofty experts of the three Holy Lands who had already been used to pushing the ordinary people of the three Holy Lands around. But no matter what, with the war for seizing the heavens hanging as a sharp knife over their heads, they could only compromise as much as possible, no matter how unwilling they were in their hearts. The various countries of the world, all the large families of the pugilistic world, all received the invitation letter from the evil monarch's faction. Even the powers in the remote grasslands of the north also received an invitation. The number of powers that were invited this time could be said to have encompassed the entire world, and every occupation. Although the content of each invitation letter was the same, they were divided into 5 different types: golden yellow invitation letters, white jade invitation letters, platinum invitation letters, red copper invitation letters, and black iron invitation letters. A total of 5 different colors. For an invitation letter from the evil monarch, it's likely that no one who received it would dare to not attend. This was a fellow who even dared to challenge the 3 Holy Lands and still came out ahead. Who would be willing to offend such a person? Receiving an invitation letter and not turning up? Wasn't that the same as saying they were sick of living? Not only must they go, they had to go even if they sold off all their property and bankrupted the family. Thus, the golden yellow invitation letters, which was the highest tier, had become a mark of status in the pugilistic world. It was a form of glory to hold one of those. Right now, anyone who possessed even a platinum invitation letter would be deemed to be people with some status. As long as a person took one out in public, they would instantly draw many envious gazes. As for white jade invitation letters, that was an idol-level thing. While it was not very rare, there were only very few people who had those. As for the red copper invitation letters, they were things that only legendary characters could have. The invitation letter sent out by the evil monarch had practically split the various powers of the world into 5 segments. It was easy to understand, and very orderly as well. As the evil monarch's invitation was sent out, the wealthiest man in Xian, Tang Yuan, and the god of wealth of this world, immediately released a world-shaking level announcement to support the evil monarch's manner. And he directly used actions to demonstrate his firm support. Anyone who'd received the evil monarch's invitation would have all of their travel expenses, including food and lodging, taken care of by the aristocratic hall. And the time limit will last until they left Tiannan. This news truly shocked the entire world. If all the invitation letters were counted together and the colors added up together, it would at least be in the tens of thousands. All those who received the invitation letters were all at least heroes and rulers of an area, or even kings of an entire country. If each person brought along 10 guards and servants with them, how many people would there be? It wouldn't be much even if the counting began from the 100,000 mark. Assuming that each person spent 10 silvers every day on average, the expenses of a single day would still amount to millions of silvers. And this entire event would last at least 20 days. Calculating like that, this owner of the aristocratic hall would, at the most conservative estimate, need to spend over 300 million silvers. This was an astronomical price, no matter who it was. And Tang Yuan, this god of wealth, truly did not let down his reputation as the richest man in the world. He did not even furrow his brows at the mention of this terrifying figure, and simply moved his lips and agreed. It was as simple as though he had just let out a fart. The fatty only felt a relaxed feeling and did not feel the slightest bit of worry. Right now, gold and silver had become nothing but a bunch of meaningless numbers to Tang Yuan. The aristocratic hall was still the same aristocratic hall and did not have anything different. That was because Fatty had become lazy. He wasn't willing to run around everywhere like before. Thus, he'd only expanded the original aristocratic hall by 10 times. The amount of space it took was not that big, only slightly smaller than the Tianxiang Imperial Palace. The only thing was, the aristocratic hall still had an underground space which was not inferior to even the Zhan family's underground space. Right now, one could say that even if a common copper coin landed in Tang Yuan's hands, he could resell it for a ridiculous price of 10,000 gold if he so wished. Because the god of wealth said, that is the value of this coin. Then, that would be its value. It would have value even if it was worthless. If you insisted that it had no value, that meant that you could not see the uniqueness of this coin. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1067. Rich and Imposing. According to legends, there were two newly rich lords from the villages who once came into Tianxiang City carrying 5,000 silvers. They thought that they were rich and imposing, and did not lack money, and so they decided to go to the aristocratic hall to have some fun. When they reached there, they asked the guard at the door, "What can we do with 5,000 silvers here? How long could we play for?" The guard looked at the two of them with pitiable glances and pointed at the distance. "See that? Go over there, and you will see a tea restaurant." After handing over 5,000 silvers, you can go to the first level and find a seat for yourself. You can enjoy a pot of tea there, but you need to remember, you can only sit there for at most 1 hour. After that, you can go. I'll give you another word of advice. When you're drinking there, it's best to behave appropriately. Don't try to make any moves on the serving girls because they're beautiful, as long as the girl sits down. And, as long as their B*TT touches the chair. It doesn't matter if you have other requests or not. You won't be able to leave that door if you don't have 50,000 silvers. The two rich men discussed for half a day before coming to a conclusion. 5,000 silvers is only enough to have a pot of tea in the aristocratic hall, nothing else. Even if they had money, it shouldn't be spent like that. Thus, they left in a crestfallen manner and saved the 5,000 silvers. Later on, this little story became a joke that spread to the entire city. Many people were furious that the rich were so overbearing, completely not caring about the gap between the wealthy and the poor at all. However, those rich young masters who could afford to spend the money became even more eager. Not only were they not ashamed of themselves, they spent even more lavishly as if it were a badge of honor. Are you an aristocrat? Have you been to the aristocratic hall? No. Then what kind of aristocrat are you? Feck. Talk business? Sure. Let's go to the aristocratic hall. What? You can't afford it? You can't even afford to go to the aristocratic hall and you have the face to talk business with me? Forget it then. If there are any crises in the business, are you even capable of covering the loss? Do you have anything that you won in an auction from the aristocratic hall? No. Then you are truly too laughable. The aristocratic hall was a place that only the real aristocrats could afford to visit. Only the super rich had the qualifications to enter. Even if one entered the aristocratic hall and came out squeezed as dry as an old lemon that had been left out in the wind for a long time, one would at least still be capable of speaking on equal grounds as all the other upper class. People who could enter the aristocratic hall were elites. People who stood at the peak. The best of the best. This was the basic idea behind young Master Jun's idea when he established the aristocratic hall. All the messages behind their advertisements were exactly this. After Tang Yuan took over, he pushed this idea with greater effort, spreading it to the entire Xian continent. Then, when the name of the evil monarch became more resounding, the aristocratic hall's fame grew even higher as a result. And the prices of the things in the aristocratic hall seemed to be sitting on a rocket, shooting all the way into the skies. But the higher the price became, the more people went. This was a concept that the commoners and normal people could not understand at all. To them, it was the legendary, brainless people effect. The spirit herbs that could no longer catch young Master Jun's eyes would immediately be placed for auction at the aristocratic hall. Something that would normally be bought with just 2.000 gold would be impossible to buy at the aristocratic hall without at least 50.000 gold. Why? This granddaddy is an aristocrat. This granddaddy is not auctioning spirit herbs, but a status. Do you understand? To sell something for just 1 or 2,000 gold. That would be disgracing the face of the aristocrats too much. A pot of tea that costs 50 silver would not have anyone drinking it at all. But if it's raised to 500 silvers, the restaurant would be flooded with customers. If it's raised to 5.000 silvers, people would even need to place a reservation in advance to get a seat. And the tea house was only one of the lowest earning businesses of the aristocratic hall. With just a single thought, Fatty Tang's net worth could be said to have reached an absolutely terrifying level. Money could enslave ghosts, and even summon the gods. When one had accumulated enough money that even the heavens would be moved, one would still be a terrifying character even if they didn't have any physical strength. The entire Xian continent was stirred up as all the large powers moved out. All of them were elites with great strength and influence. This was not just an invitation to attend the establishment of the evil monarch's faction. It was also a chance for everyone to showcase their abilities in front of the heroes of the world. Who would dare to miss this chance? The grand ceremony of the evil monarch had sent the whole continent into a buzz. From the 3 holy lands to the worldly families, to even the mighty pirates of the ocean, everyone began to move at the same time. Even those who hadn't received an invitation were also fretting to look for a good gift to send over. If they could present a gift that was able to catch the eye of the evil monarch, they could ascend to the heavens in one move. Whether it was those who had received an invitation or those who hadn't, at least 2/3 of the people in the continent were reeking their brains about the present. No one would go forward empty-handed. That was for sure. But what should they bring? What should they give that would help them to stand out in front of the evil monarch? I heard that old fellow is an exceedingly unreasonable person. It's fine if the gift did not stand out. But if it is unsatisfactory, their lives might even become forfeit. Thus, many newly rich families were constantly being targeted by theft, robberies, kidnapping, etc. They were not taking gold and silver, but rare and precious items. There was a well-known rich man who had good brothers in all corners of the world. But in this short period, his only son had actually been kidnapped twice by those familiar friends. Furthermore, his family's treasury had been ransacked thoroughly by thieves and robbers. After this, the rich man shattered all his mirrors. Whenever he wanted to take a look at his reflection, he could just go to the treasury room and use the smooth and empty floor as a mirror. The floor had been swept so cleanly that it was even clearer than the bronze mirrors. It was possible to even count the number of hairs on his leg if he stood still. But at this time, young Master Jun did not have the slightest idea about the chaos in the world. Right now, he was walking through the dense forest alone. When he left the misty illusory manor this time, he did not come out the way that he went in initially. The place where he'd come in from at the start was not far from the Dongfang family, but Jun Moxie found that he was actually at a very foreign location this time. Although this place was also a dense forest that stretched as far as the eyes could see, it was very different from the original entrance. The mountains in the distance did not appear familiar at all. The forest was exceedingly dense, and even young Master Jun could not see far into the distance with his eyes. But Jun Moxie was not anxious at all. As long as he was back in the Xian continent, he would eventually find his way home. At this moment, he simply chose a random direction and walked forward in a slow manner by himself. There was truly no need to be anxious. He only needed to find a place where people lived, and he would be able to understand where he was. After determining his direction and traveling down at full speed, he would return to Tiannan in at most a few days. Besides, young Master Jun had managed to feed Green Hunter a few mouthfuls of food ever since she'd been healed using the holy tree's life blood essence. Her pulse was also getting stronger, while her breathing was heavier. Her condition was improving rapidly, and she seemed like she would wake up at any time. In this crucial period, how would Jun Moxie forget about Green Hunter while only caring to rush home? This poor girl had already been sleeping for a few months now. In this period of time, Jun Moxie had also asked himself countless times, after having Guan Qinghan, he accepted Mei Shuiyan. After accepting Mei Shuiyan, he could not give up Guan Qinghan, and even accepted an additional Dugu Xiao Yi. And now, he'd also taken Miao Xiao Miao in. Then, why couldn't he accept Green Hunter? This was originally a world where men were in a dominant position, and it was common for a man to have many wives. Even the women saw it as an extremely normal thing. Then, could it be that he didn't dare to take up this responsibility? Did he have to reject these smart and beautiful girls who loved him deeply to some common guy? Would they really be able to find happiness like that? No. If he did that, it would definitely not be a matter of happiness for them. They would only fall into an endless abyss, and he would never find peace within his conscience. In that case, what am I afraid of? Who am I afraid of? Back then, Guan Qinghan had been the target of public ridicule and scorn, but hadn't he still managed to face the problem and resolved it by force? Could it be that he'd instead become more cowardly after experiencing all those things? I am Jun Moxie, the monarch of all evils in this world. Why should I care about the views of the world? I do as I wish. That is sufficient. As for the disdainful eyes of others, who the feck are they? If they irritate this daddy, I'll annihilate their 9 generations. As his thoughts traveled here, Jun Moxie felt his body lighten considerably, and his mind felt more refreshed. In that moment, he suddenly remembered the Jun family's ancestral teachings: having balls does not make you a man. It is the incomparably indomitable spirit which does. He could not help but to roar aloud with laughter. Feck them. What a nice feck them. Ha ha ha. His vulgar laughter rose into the sky, sending the birds in the trees around him fleeing in panic. All of a sudden, Jun Moxie clearly heard a weak moan from inside the Hongjun pagoda. Jun Moxie instantly recognized the source of the voice and gasped with surprise. His body shook lightly and suddenly disappeared from the forest, diving into the Hongjun pagoda. Inside the Hongjun pagoda, Green Hunter was trying to prop her body up weakly as she looked around her surroundings with fear and confusion. "You're awake?" Jun Moxie had already returned to his original appearance after he came out of the misty illusory manor. When he saw Green Hunter waking up, he quickly asked, "You?" A look of joy appeared on her face. But in an instant, the look disappeared and she hung her head. "Brother-in-law, where is this? How come I'm not dead? With brother-in-law here, how would you be allowed to die? This place is a secret location," Jun Moxie said with a slight smile. But inside him, he felt a strange sour feeling in his heart. When Green Hunter awoke, her eyes had been filled with wild joy when she saw him. However, it had turned immediately into a look of endless pain and regret. This silly girl had been so full of fear and suspicion when she saw this place. But the instant she saw him, all her fear had instantly turned into peace and calm. It was as if it didn't matter where this was. As long as he was here, everything would be fine. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1068. Snake Queen Awakens. But Green Hunter had still forcefully controlled her overwhelming emotions and called him brother-in-law. Jun Moxie could hear how difficult and painful it was for her to call him that. A look of disappointment appeared in her eyes. She originally thought that she had already died, along with Jun Moxie. When Jun Moxie had unleashed that heaven-shocking strike back then, Green Hunter didn't even have a single shred of hope of living. However, she was sacrificing herself for Jun Moxie and sacrificing herself for her hopeless love. When she saw that Jun Moxie was also with her in this strange world, she felt a little happy in her heart. Although she was letting down her eldest sister, she could now be with him, even if they were in the Netherworld. When she asked, "How am I still alive?" she'd hoped to hear Jun Moxie tell her that she'd already died. That would mean that the Jun Moxie in front of her was also, and that would also mean that she could be with him. But now, she realized that her hopes had been dashed. She was actually still alive. Since she was still alive, that meant that she would have to continue living while shouldering that hopeless love. "How do you feel? Is it uncomfortable anywhere?" Jun Moxie helped her up in a somewhat anxious manner. Green Hunter had just woken up, and in this period of time, he'd fed her countless pills and natural treasures. How would she feel? "I'm fine, the only feeling I have now is I'm so full." Green Hunter examined her body and found that apart from her body being somewhat weak, the energy in her dantian was filled to an unimaginable extent. She felt that her cultivation had even improved drastically in this period of time while she was unconscious, and it had even reached a previously unimaginable level. If she had to point out an area that she felt uncomfortable about, it would be that she seemed to be too full. She even seemed a little. "Brother-in-law, how long have I been unconscious?" Green Hunter asked. "You'd been unconscious for 3 months, 8 days, and 12 hours. Jun Moxie thought for a moment and answered with surprising accuracy. "Ah, so much time had already passed," she exclaimed and stood up, only to find that her body was still somewhat frail and not completely capable of listening to her orders. Stumbling in a somewhat shocked manner, she asked, "Since I've been unconscious for such a long time, how is this possible?" Being in a coma did not mean death. An unconscious person still needed to eat, drink, and expel waste. Furthermore, after being in such a long coma, her muscles and bones would definitely be stiff and weak, even displaying signs of atrophying. Such symptoms would appear for people who were unconscious for a few days, let alone a few months. But she actually didn't feel anything strange at all. This in itself was the strangest thing. In these 3 months, who had been taking care of me? Green Hunter lowered her head and asked. Cough cough cough. Young Master Jun rubbed his nose and said in a somewhat awkward manner. This. I was the one who has been taking care of you. You? Green Hunter instantly blushed heavily. At the same time, she felt a strange sense of happiness in her heart. Even Green Hunter herself did not know why she had those thoughts. Her snow-white face instantly flushed a deep red, all the way until her neck as she asked in a light voice. Then, how did you take care of me? This. Jun Moxie stammered, not knowing what to say. We're all family. There was no need to behave like strangers. It's exactly as what you imagined, and, in order to prevent your body from stiffening, I massage your muscles, joints and veins every day, once in the morning and once at night. I also fed you food and gave you water 3 times a day, also. As he spoke to her, Green Hunter had already grown embarrassed to a point where she was covering her face with her hands. Her body shook lightly as well. And, what? No wonder she didn't feel much discomfort in her body. It turned out that he always helped her massage her body and fed her. Wouldn't that mean that he'd already touched every single part of my body? This lofty snake queen almost wished that she would fall into another coma at this time. This was simply too embarrassing. Cough cough cough, also, cough cough. Jun Moxie coughed violently as if he had suddenly caught a deadly lung cancer. You know, all humans have the 3 needs. When you were unconscious, this, that. Hearing this, Green Hunter made a slight sound of despair in her throat and her eyes rolled upwards, nearly fainting from the shame. Jun Moxie cried out with shock, hurriedly running forward and catching her. After patting her back and pressing her acupoints, he managed to bring her back. But this snake queen that had woken up was the same as before. Her entire body soft, she laid in Jun Moxie's arms, refusing to raise her head no matter what. So that was why I felt so full the moment I woke up, so he actually. How should I continue living this life? How do I face all this? All humans had their 3 needs. Didn't that mean that he had helped her relieve all those needs? In other words, she had completely no secrets in front of him anymore? Didn't that mean that he'd seen everything now? And even, the most embarrassing things had already been done. This was an exceedingly awkward thing that even husbands and wives would not encounter. This was truly troublesome. After a long and awkward silence, she realized that it was impossible to continue staying silent like that. In an attempt to find something to say, she asked, Then, how did you feed me? Her voice was as light as a mosquito's. Young Master Jun groaned internally. Elder sister, you even managed to ask this question? Is there a need to be so detailed? How did I feed you? How else am I supposed to feed you? It can only be done like that. But since the girl had already asked like that, he had to answer he no matter what. Steeling his heart, he hardened his face and replied, just like, mouth to mouth. Green Hunter instantly realized that she had asked a dumb question, and she turned her face away again. That was all my fault. Young Master Jun consoled. That. I will take responsibility. No need. Unexpectedly, the moment Jun Moxie said those words, Green Hunter turned around swiftly and said, I don't need you to take responsibility. You are my brother-in-law and will always be my brother-in-law. In this life, You can only be my brother-in-law. I will not allow you to let down eldest sister. Not mentioning whether eldest sister is agreeable or not. I will never agree. Jun Moxie had already prepared himself long ago for this kind of reaction from her. The Snake Queen had always been this kind of girl. Otherwise, there would not have been a situation where she had kept her feelings hidden from him for such a long time back then. All of that had been for him and Mei Shuiyan. You don't have a say in this matter, Jun Moxie said forcefully. Right now, you're already my woman. Where are you still thinking of running away to? Whether you agree or disagree, this matter is already decided. No. Green Hunter stood up swiftly. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her face was white. You have to accept it even if you don't want to, Jun Moxie said with a cold face. Since when do you have a say in this kind of thing? I'm the head of the house, and my word is final. No, we can't do that. Eldest sister will be sad. Green Hunter shook her head violently and said with clenched teeth. Brother-in-law, we can't do that. I can't let eldest sister down. And you especially must not disappoint her. Please don't be like this. I'll promise to be your woman, but I will never appear in front of others in that position, all right? Eldest sister is a person who needs to keep her face. I will never fight with eldest sister. Never. What nonsense are you speaking? I belong to all of you. What is there to fight about? This matter ends here. There's no need to say anything more, Jun Moxie said stubbornly. At the same time, he shook his head with a gentle sigh. Qian Sun Wen. I know you have great respect for your eldest sister, but what kind of man did you take me for? Could it be that in your heart, I'm such a man who can't take responsibility? If I'm really that kind of man, would I still be worth your sacrifices? Green Hunter's tears flowed down her face, and she shook her head continuously. Her face was filled with joy, contentedness, as well as a deep guilt. Jun Moxie sighed heavily. All right, let's hurry back first. Everything will wait until after we return. Green Hunter nodded gently and did not say anything more. Jun Moxie looked at her and thought to himself, it looked like this matter would still need Mei Shuiyan to handle personally. Even young Master Jun hadn't imagined that Mei Shuiyan's position had actually reached such an extreme level in Green Hunter's heart. But Jun Moxie had actually neglected one fact. Mei Shuiyan had propped up the entire TNFA alone for so many years. One could say that if not for her, TNFA would have already have its name removed as the ferocious land long ago. In the hearts of the Xian beasts of TNFA, she could be said to be a motherly figure or a guardian angel. How could it be easy for such a level of respect that had been built up over so many long years to be broken? Green Hunter arranged her feelings and began to examine her current Xian Qi level. The moment she roused her Xian Qi, her entire body felt as light as a sparrow. The discomfort of her old, severe injuries did not appear at all, and she felt even stronger than before she was hurt. In fact, her strength had at least doubled. But as for what level she had reached exactly, she didn't know as well. That was a profound level of strength that she had never reached, or even dared to imagine before. During the period when she was hurt, Jun Moxie had fed her countless precious heavenly treasures and miraculous pills as if they were free. As she had been unconscious, she wasn't able to use her cultivation to circulate the medicinal energy in her body. As a result, all of the medicinal energy had been deposited inside her meridians. More than 3 months of such an accumulation together with the life essence of the holy tree, how could that be underestimated? The holy tree's life essence was not only merely capable of fixing her soul and body. If not for that, even with Jun Moxie's meticulous care, there was no way that her body would have recovered so quickly the moment she woke up. That was an extremely pure life essence energy. The heaven's root water. In this world, it was something that only a rainbow holy tree that had gained a consciousness could create. Green Hunter had absorbed the equivalents of several thousand years of life essence of the holy tree. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1069. What happened? The only pity was that Jun Moxie had met the holy tree a little too late, so some of the medicinal energy in Green Hunter's body had still been wasted in the end. Still, the remaining medicinal energy was still quite substantial. But if she could fully digest the full medicinal energy, the increase in her strength would only be able to be described with the word terrifying. There seems to be a lot of medicinal energy in my body. I need to refine it. Green Hunter looked at Jun Moxie with a smile. At this moment, her eyes were filled with love and gentleness. Just from the amount of energy in her body, she could tell how much Jun Moxie had done for her. Even if she had a heart of ice, she could not help but to be moved. This was all the heartfelt effort of her man. Sure. You can stay here and focus on cultivation. I will protect you. Jun Moxie nodded. This cultivation session of Green Hunters lasted for an entire day and night. She maintained the same posture throughout, not moving at all. Only the spiritual chi around her moved in and out, wrapping around her body. Every time the spiritual chi changed, it meant that Green Hunter had moved a step forward in her cultivation. After 6 times, the aura finally calmed down. Right before the whole process ended, Jun Moxie melted down 3 Heaven Extremes pill into liquid form and sent it into her mouth. After that, her spiritual chi once again began to rise. No matter how one broke through here, there was no need to worry about any dangers. Lightning tribulations had no way of detecting this place as well. After breaking through in here, she could go out, and the Hongjun Pagoda would directly absorb away the lightning tribulation, turn it into pure spiritual chi and store it away. Thus, Jun Moxie prepared to let her break through to the limit, where she could stand with the peak experts of the world. For his own women, since he could let her reach a greater height, why wouldn't he do it? After the spiritual chi from the Heaven Extremes pill weakened, Jun Moxie waved his hand, and the thick spiritual chi from the Hongjun Pagoda surged forward, condensing slowly into a golden jade fluid which he fed to Green Hunter. The spiritual chi fluctuations this time was greatly different and were exceedingly violent. A painful look appeared on Green Hunter's face and her meridians seemed to have swelled up, her veins could be seen clearly from under her skin. Jun Moxie stretched his hand out unhurriedly and placed it against her back. After that, a wisp of incomparably pure spirit energy flowed through her body, helping her to dissolve the medicinal energy. A thick pungent liquid started to flow out slowly from her skin. After a long time, Green Hunter finally woke up. You should go and take a good bath. There's a little island over there, and here's some clothes. I've prepared them specially for when you wake up. Later, when you come out again, we'll get ready to receive the lightning tribulation. Jun Moxie said with a faint smile. Knowing that she was shy, he exited the Hongjun Pagoda. Green Hunter examined her body and felt the powerful pure spirit energy in her body. Looking at the direction that Jun Moxie had left in, she could not help but smile sillily in happiness. A few droplets of tears also fell from her eyes. A short moment later, the sky was filled with tribulation clouds, and lightning fell continuously. On the ground, Green Hunter laid in Jun Moxie's arms. Completely unharmed, the Hongjun Pagoda was truly reliable, or more accurately, it was greedy. All the lightning that fell around them was swallowed up cleanly, leaving nothing. By the time everything ended, Jun Moxie carefully examined the Snake Queen's strength. He found to his surprise, first-level Saint Emperor. One had to know that before Green Hunter was injured, she had only been a mere superior supreme. Even worse than Miao Xiao Miao. But after everything, she had directly skipped over the 4 levels of the Venerable Realm, the 4 levels of the Saint Realm, and directly stepped into the Saint Emperor in one shot. Even compared to the previous Mei Shuiyan, she was not lacking too much. After all, she had 1,000 years worth of the Holy Tree's life essence more than Mei Shuiyan. If one calculated in all the sub-realms within each level, she had skipped over 30 levels in one go. Such a level of improvement was something that could not be exaggerated even if it was described as ascending to the heavens with one step. Even Green Hunter herself could not help but to open her little mouth wide with disbelief after she found out about this. Saint Emperor? She was a Saint Emperor now? But she hadn't even heard about such a realm before. On the noon of the next day, a man and a woman stepped into a little town on the north side of Tianxiang country. The man was dressed fully in white shirt and white pants, and he looked handsome and refined. He was tall, with an elegant bearing. The girl was dressed in a light green dress, and she had a petite frame with a willowy waist. She seemed incredibly enchanting and was delicate and cute like a fairy. Especially that dress on her, it was dreamy, looking like a smoky peony, as if one was looking at a flower through a fog. It was completely impossible to see what kind of material it had been made of. As she walked along the road, it gave others a feeling as if she were riding atop a cloud. These two were naturally the world-renowned evil monarch, Jun Moxie, and the Snake Queen Green Hunter. The dress that Green Hunter was wearing was one of the 9 dresses that the 9 Nether First Young Master had given young Master Jun back then. Only until now did young Master Jun have the chance to gift one of it to his woman. The colors of the 9 dresses were all different, and this was the only green-colored one. The moment Jun Moxie pulled it out, Green Hunter fell in love with it immediately and hurried to put it on. Of course, after the Snake Queen put on this dress, her delicate features had become even more striking. After passing through the tribulation, Green Hunter sternly warned young Master Jun to not turn around. Then, she'd ran off to secretly deal with her all humans have 3 needs problem. This idiot. Even if you want to feed me, there's no need to stuff me until I'm almost bursting. If such a serious injury couldn't even take her life, but she ended up being stuffed to death by food, wouldn't that be a huge tragedy? The Snake Queen naturally did not know that young Master Jun wasn't actually trying to toy with her on purpose. This fellow thought that all Xian beasts would have a big appetite. Take Big Bear for example. That appetite of that fellow. So after Green Hunter was healed, young Master Jun had fed her according to half the portion that Big Bear would eat, afraid that she would be hungry. Only when she could not eat anymore did he stop, not to mention Green Hunter, who suffered greatly. Even young Master Jun's mouth was tired from chewing so much. Kissing once was naturally a nice thing, but after 100 kisses, and 1,000 kisses in consecutive succession, it was a different story. But if he said that out, he would probably end up suffering the relentless wrath of the girl. You seem to be treating this lady as a pig. And it's even enough food to feed quite a few pigs. Following that, there were suddenly a few more things in the Hongjun Pagoda, a full 5, 6 sets of snake skin. One had to know that the Snake Queen would shed once after every breakthrough. Naturally, The Snake Queen would not happily shed with young Master Jun beside her. This was a result of her ascending too many ranks at once. If she molted every single time, she would end up shedding over 20 skins. The Snake Queen was very embarrassed about this kind of thing, whereas young Master Jun didn't seem to think anything of it. This brother already knows that you're the Snake Queen, and I've already begun treating you as my wife. Why would I mind it? Besides, that Bai Suzhen from the new legend of Madame White Snake One still ended up giving birth to a human baby. And my Qian Sun is much stronger than her. This brother doesn't mind at all. Originally, young Master Jun still wanted to let her eat the 7-colored holy fruits and exquisite lotus. But Green Hunter had asked a single sentence, "Has eldest sister eaten the yet?" Young Master Jun naturally answered honestly, "Not yet." He'd only just gotten this stuff. If she'd already eaten it, that would be strange. In the end, Green Hunter refused to eat, and even said that unless Mei Shuayan ate first, she would not do so first. This Snake Queen's insistence completely left young Master Jun speechless. But at the same time, he felt happy for Mei Shuayan. All along the way, as long as there were places where people lived, he would see many Xian experts rushing somewhere in a hurried manner. It was as if there was an extremely urgent matter that required all of them to handle. Such a frequent occurrence was naturally not of the same batch. Along the way, Jun Moxie had already seen 7, 8 batches of people riding on swift horses and passing them by. These powerful characters were all rushing off in anxious manners, while an indescribably fervent look could be seen in their eyes. On normal days, these people would at least pause to look at a great beauty like Green Hunter, or even whistle at her and say a few words. But today, not a single person took the initiative to chat with her. At most, they would turn back to look at her after they'd rushed past her. But before they could even conceive any lustful thoughts, their horses had already bolted far into the distance, leaving behind a cloud of dust. As a result, Snake Queen Green Hunter felt somewhat depressed. Could it be that after she came out, her charm had dropped that much? On the other hand, Jun Moxie thought of another possibility. Could it be that something huge had happened recently? Or something that was about to happen? Perhaps the war for seizing the heavens had started earlier? Otherwise, it would truly be hard to understand how these aristocratic families and strong experts of the pugilistic world were behaving so abnormally this time. From their behaviors, even if someone in their families had died, they wouldn't be running with such urgency. This was simply too strange. And because these people were rushing too quickly, he did not even have the chance to ask them what happened. Of course, young Master Jun could forcibly stop them, but he didn't want to do that. As his cultivation improved, his heart had also become more calm. An action that was like bullying the weak was something that he was not interested in at all. Still, even if there were any urgent matters, he only needed to find a place where he could get good information. In any case, it wasn't an urgent matter for him. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1070. What invitation letter? There was a large town in front, and among the neighboring areas, this place could already be considered the most bustling. The largest inn of the city, the Phoenix Perching Inn. This was a place that the queen had once dined in before, according to some legends. As for this town, it was also called the Phoenix Rights Town. At this time, the Phoenix Perching Inn was completely filled. When Jun Moxie and Green Hunter walked in, there was only one table remaining. From the looks of it, another customer had left not long ago, and the table had just been cleared. Over half the people in here had weapons hanging on their waist, and they were dressed like pugilist experts. Looking over with a single eye, Jun Moxie could not help but to open his mouth slightly with shock. There were actually even a few Sky Xian experts among this group, and with a single look, he could spot at least 3 or 4. To the current young Master Jun, the Sky Xian realm was no longer worth anything much, to the point of being meaningless in his eyes. But in this world, a Sky Xian expert was still a powerful hero of an area. To see a bunch of Sky Xian experts together in one's place could be said to be exceedingly rare. But today, this seemingly secluded and small town actually had 3 or 4 Sky Xian experts dining together in the same inn. Furthermore, there were no troubles at all, and everyone was eating quietly and drinking their own wine. There were completely no intentions to stir up any trouble. Since when had these rowdy and hot-blooded bunch of people become so law-abiding? Furthermore, there were 2 people among the few Sky Xian experts who very obviously had some grudges between them. Just by the looks of hatred in their eyes, it was easy to see this much. The servants beside them were even more tensed, and they were nearly at the point of pulling their blades out at any time. However, the 2 still held their rage in their hearts, and forcefully controlled themselves and the attitudes of their servants. It was clear that none of them were willing to start a conflict here. When has the pugilistic world become so civilized? At the very least, this scene caused young Master Jun to be somewhat at a loss, unable to fathom the reason behind everything. Jun Moxie and Green Hunter sat down, and a waiter quickly went forward to ask, "This, sir, and madam, may I ask if the 2 of you have an invitation letter?" "Invitation letter? What invitation letter?" Jun Moxie asked with a strange look on his face. What is going on today? Does one even need an invitation card to eat nowadays? What kind of nonsense was this? Compared to the bewildered young Master Jun, the Snake Queen instead smiled shyly after being addressed as Madam. "Ah, since young Master does not have an invitation letter, you may place your orders now." The waiter nodded and bowed quickly before pulling out a menu. But young Master Jun became even more stumped at this. What was that? "I can order because I don't have an invitation letter." Then does that mean that people with an invitation letter need not order? An invitation letter. Perhaps a rich person in this town is holding a birthday celebration today, and anyone who comes to this inn with an invitation letter would have their bill taken care of by the rich lord. That must be the case. Truthfully, young Master Jun's guess had indeed been quite close to the mark. However, he was extremely far off in the scale of this guess. "Waiter, do you have a quieter area?" Jun Moxie looked at the noisy inn and said with furrowed brows, "Apologies, sir. Our little inn is already filled." The waiter bowed apologetically. "We'll just sit here then," Green Hunter said in a light voice. That single "madam" earlier had left her in such a sweet mood that she no longer bothered about these details. "Fine then." Jun Moxie causally ordered a few light dishes and a jug of wine. The waiter pursed his mouth and brought the menu away with a perfunctory bow. He had seen that those 2 youngsters were dressed so well and had guessed that their status must not be ordinary. Normally, these kinds of guests were the favorite of all inns and restaurants. But who would have thought that the guy would end up only ordering such light and bland dishes? How embarrassing. If I could bring a girl like that out, even if I blew all my life savings on a meal, it would be worth it. How cheap. Who would have imagined that the world-renowned evil monarch young Master Jun Moxie would actually end up being called a cheap bastard by the waiter of a small inn? Just at this time, the thunderous sounds of horse galloping rang out, stopping right in front of the inn. A few middle-aged men entered, with a man and a woman between them. The man was a muscular fellow dressed in purple robes, and he took the lead and entered. Jun Moxie furrowed his brows, yet another Sky Xian expert. And it's even Sky Xian peak. Just what was going on today? Lord Sima. I didn't expect that you would come. We were just in the middle of looking for a person to travel with us. Inside the inn, several people stood up and greeted him. This Lord Sima smiled lightly and nodded. A few quick-witted people hurriedly stood up and offered their table. Lord Sima did not take ceremony, and simply cupped his fists and thanked them before strutting over and sitting down. The moment he sat down, he pulled out a palm-sized red copper-colored thing and slammed it on the table. As he took out the copper thing, he looked around the entire inn with an arrogant expression on his face. As expected, the instant that copperish-colored thing came out, everyone's eyes instantly turned onto him. Someone even said with an envious sigh, "Lord Sima is indeed Lord Sima. Ah, to think that it's actually a red copper one. Her. Us brothers are really jealous. Ah." Lord Sima smiled in a pleased manner and cupped his fists saying, No, this is just Lord Jun giving me some face. Truthfully, this Sima is not worthy of this red copper invitation letter. Ah. You're being too modest. Too modest. How could Lord Jun possibly send out the wrong invitation letter? For Lord Sima to receive a red copper one is only natural. The crowd replied. Haha, everyone is being too kind. Lord Sima could not contain the proudness in his heart as he laughed happily. The young girl that had come in with Lord Sima didn't say anything all the way, but her eyes were fixed on the dress that Green Hunter was wearing. Her face was filled with great reluctance, as if she wanted to swallow that dress using her eyes. One had to say that regardless of which era it was, clothes still held the most irresistible attraction to women. Especially a beautiful long dress like the one that Green Hunter was wearing right now. With a single look, it would rouse up the desires in people's hearts. It was simple, but not lacking in elegance, gracefulness, but with restraint. Although the colors were beautiful, it was not too dazzling. This dress looked simple at first glance, but after seeing it properly just once, a person would fall into a daze because of it. If one examined it properly, they would discover that regardless of the style or color coordination, it was truly a perfect work of art. Just by sitting there quietly, it gave of an aloof feeling, causing others to not dare to look at it. There aren't any elaborate decorations on it, and only the soft waistband tied in a ribbon loop. Along the chest contours, there were faint dark lines that formed a phoenix pattern. But it was exactly this kind of subtle detail that made the dress even more appealing. Especially after wearing it, it caused the person to look like a fairy that had descended from the heavens, elegant and classy, lofty and out of reach. Which lady would not want to wear such an outstanding dress? The more she looked, the more her heart yearned for the dress, and she could not tear her eyes away. Her eyes were filled with a passionate greed, and finally, unable to hold back her desires, she turned around and whispered a few words into Lord Sima's ears. That Lord Sima raised his head and turned around to look at Jun Moxie and Green Hunter's table. When he saw Green Hunter, this lofty Lord Sima could not help but to have a look of shock appear in his eyes. When he first came in, he hadn't noticed or thought that such a rare beauty would actually appear in this kind of secluded place. Although the two of them were dressed luxuriously and their weapons looked extraordinary, the two were just a pair of youngsters. In that moment, he could not help but feel somewhat tempted. From the looks of it, this pair should be the child of some high-ranking court officials. Or perhaps, it's just a newly-wed couple coming out to see the world. But with his Sky Xian peak cultivation, there really shouldn't be a single person in this entire area that could offend him. This young sir, this one is called Sima Shang. It's a pleasure to meet you. Although Lord Sima was cupping his fists and saying in a warm manner, he had an arrogant look on his face as if he were saying, I'm giving you a lot of face by talking to you. Oh. Lord Sima. I wonder what is the matter. Jun Moxie raised his head and said in a somewhat calm manner. Truthfully, young Master Jun did not really wish to talk that much with such a small character in such a secluded place. Thus, he already felt that he was being very courteous and affable. If he reported his status as the evil monarch, how would that simply be considered courteous and affable? This Lord Sima would probably be scared to the point where he fainted. And after waking up, he would even boast to everyone he knew about the encounter. If he could keep his memories in the next life, he would probably also continue boasting in the next life that the evil monarch had once spoken to him in a gentle and affectionate way. But the problem now was that Sima Shang didn't know. So right now, Lord Sima was feeling exceedingly uncomfortable in his heart. Who the hell is this rude kid? Feck. Who gave him that kind of arrogance? What kind of status do I have? I initiated a talk with him, and he actually dared to reply in a bored manner like that, as if it was only natural? Too fecking cocky. Not only this Lord Sima. Everyone around him also raised their brows when they heard Jun Moxie's tone. This kid is surely a little too brave, right? This is Sima Shang. A peak Sky Xian expert who is only one step away from the Spirit Xian level. In just this area of 1,000 li, who could afford to offend him? A mere kid like you actually dared to speak to him with that attitude. Looks like this kid is doomed this time. This story will be continued to chapter 1071. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.